Hello, and thanks for joining us as we look at Reconciliation Action Plans, or RAPs, in more detail. Firstly, I would like to pay my respect and to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the lands of which we meet today, and also pay my respect to elders both past and present. Continuing from our previous podcast, a RAP represents a practical process for organizations to foster better relationships, demonstrate respect, and provide opportunities with and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. This podcast is an opportunity for the NGO Learning Centre to share the reconciliation journey of Life Without Barriers, an NGO that has been extremely successful in creating and implementing RAPs within their organisation. We will examine how Life Without Barriers have used their RAPs to create a culture within their organisation that recognises not only the importance of learning about Aboriginal culture and creating an environment of respect, but also finding practical ways to implement this knowledge so that relationships with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, young people and families can be developed and maintained. During the course of this series, we will hear from both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal staff within Life Without Barriers as they tell us their stories about how their RAPs have enabled them to develop better relationships, respect and opportunities, how the organisation has engaged staff in the RAP objectives, has ensured that programs, policies and practice tools used reflect Aboriginal cultural values, as well as offering advice to other organisations thinking of embarking on or implementing a reconciliation action plan. First, we'll hear from Les Ahoy, State Lead New South Wales and ACT for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander initiatives, who will explain why Life Without Barriers have chosen to develop a RAP.
Life Without Barriers back in 2009 made a decision to develop a reconciliation action plan to ensure that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are fundamental to the work that Life Without Barriers do. The other reason is that they wanted to have a major role in the reconciliation process. So our RAP has to have actions and outcomes that we believe that are positive to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
Les, there are three key areas of the Life Without Barriers RAP. Can you please tell us a bit about the first, embracing reconciliation and engaging with honesty?
Well, in terms of embracing reconciliation, it's about Life Without Barriers acknowledging that there is a disparity in such things as closing the gap, life expectancy, health, education, and in terms of the work that we do, Aboriginal out of home care, where numbers are growing. So it's looking at the role that Life Without Barriers can play within the reconciliation process and also in closing the gap. And it's about engaging Aboriginal people and their communities in an open, honest and transparent way. In the past, history has shown that too many non-Aboriginal organisations have approached Aboriginal communities for targets and for answers for specific reasons. And they've made a lot of promises to Aboriginal people in return, and promises that were never carried through and never carried out. So in terms of that, Life Without Barriers, we are ensuring that if we say we're going to do something to the community or to simply an individual Aboriginal person, that we don't make those promises knowing that we won't carry them out, but we do make promises knowing that we will carry those promises out.
Thanks, Les. As you've mentioned, even in that shorter time, there are a vast range of things to be considered when putting together not just a RAP, but also in ensuring that the right messages go to the right people. So how is the Reconciliation Action Program structured in an organisation as large and as complex as Life Without Barriers?
Got a national RAP which is encompassing all of Australia, states and territories. The national RAP is monitored by a National Reconciliation Forum. That is co-chaired by the National CEO of Life Without Barriers and also an Aboriginal unit manager out of Sydney. Implementing and developing policies for the National RAP is the National Reconciliation Unit, and that is an all Aboriginal staff unit, and their responsibility is to develop and implement the National RAP objectives and outcomes. Coming down from that, we have a New South Wales RAP implementation plan that is overseen by a New South Wales RAP implementation committee. And we in New South Wales are unique in that we broke it down to another level where we have area RAP implementation committees and area RAP implementation plans. Now that area RAP implementation committee is responsible for organising local cultural events within their local communities and also developing their local RAPs that produces the opportunities for local LWB staff to participate in those cultural events.
Since at its heart, a successful RAP is more than just governance and structures, Edward Burt, Life Without Barriers Southern New South Wales and ACT Area Operations Manager, will conclude the Framework podcast by detailing some real-life outcomes that have occurred as a direct result of the governance and structures Les and his team have put in place. Edward, tell us a little bit about how the RAP comes to life in your region.
Okay, so typically we're involved in all of the national days around Reconciliation, Sorry Day, NAIDOC and those types of things. We do see what's happening locally, get involved because, as you know, NAIDOC week is like chock full of stuff going on, and we try not to, we just try to be a bit sensitive, I suppose, about what we're doing, what we're going to, and not sort of treading on particularly local Aboriginal organisations as we would see as the priority in those sort of celebrations, that they're sort of really leading the way. Last year we did a film screening night, for example, which was really well received over in Warrawong. We put on a black screen, the Australian Film and Sound Archive screening session of short Indigenous films, which was free entry. We opened it up to community. We partnered with the Illawarra Aboriginal Corporation around that, and Tina McGee, who's the Mayimbar, which is the local out-of-home care, Aboriginal out-of-home care provider. She and Jackie, our ops manager here, and myself worked to sort of bring that to happening. And it was a great night. We're going to do it again this year.
Thanks, Edward. Sounds like it was a great night. This concludes our first topic on how the framework of a reconciliation action plan is determined and structured within an NGO, and a quick look at some of the successes. In our next podcast, we'll look at ensuring that RAP values are met through practical initiatives and the importance of building partnerships.